Welcome to GlideChat, where we give you the rundown of all things ServiceNow. Let's talk about the now, right now.
Hey everybody, thank you for joining us for another episode of GlideChat. I'm your host, Brett Karl, VP of Solutions and Alliances, and today I have with me Ed Shea, VP of Professional Services at GlideFast, and Mitch and Rob. Mitch is the CEO of VividCharts, and Rob is the head of account management. So looking forward to having an engaging conversation about VividCharts and GlideFast and see what we can dig into today. So thank you everybody and welcome.
Thanks, Brett. Looking forward.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. So I was want to get started with just, I was browsing the website over at VividCharts, and I came across a case study, and it just so happened to be the one where GlideFast was involved. Over the last year or so, GlideFast became a customer of VividCharts, and what caught my attention wasn't just that we were featured, but it was why we were featured. It was more about efficiency and time savings around project status reports. So I want to dive into that a little bit and get your take on everything, Mitch, Rob, and Ed. So to Ed, just to start, can you paint a picture for us? What did the project status reports look like before we implemented VividCharts?
They were very bleak. Start there. But no, I mean, one of the primary challenges in terms of just managing our portfolio, we have over 500 ongoing engagements at GlideFast, and one of the biggest challenges was standardization and also being able to address the status and client experience as one when it comes to driving critical aspects and status from project perspective. And ServiceNow has been the basis of our project management from the very beginning. So leveraging the ServiceNow out of the box records and updating those components of status provided the information, but it didn't provide it in a way that a client could process and could understand. Here's the risk, right? Here's where my budget is. Here's what's upcoming next week as it relates to my schedule, and it caused confusion, and at times it kind of provided clients an opportunity to kind of glance over what was truly happening on a project.
So a lot of it had to do with the design and the look and feel is what I'm hearing. What about the time it took to prepare these and also consistency? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So our typical engagement managers on a kind of not day to day, but more week to week are managing about 5 to 6 engagements, and the time that it would take to compile the critical data points for a project and then documenting and massaging that data for it to be effective for that client was on the hours on a week. And because of the amount of commitment from the EM and the hours to take and drive the delivery of that status report, found that standardization kind of lacked across status reporting. We were trying to get that information off to a client, but we weren't consistent with how we were delivering it because of the time commitment. And not to say we were cutting corners, but we were trying to get the client something as fast as possible, given, again, the time commitment that we have. And that was one of the larger challenges was really how do we provide that status in a timely way, but in a standardized look and feel for every client, regardless of the size.
And so I hear a lot of different frustrations in your voice when you're talking about what the past looked like. Were there anything bigger than that, or any additional frustrations other than the consistency and the time, or what did even clients struggle with? What was some of the feedback you received?
Yeah, clients, direct feedback. They were focused on, I don't understand, how the information was being reported, meaning that they could not process the information that was showing, say, critical path, or it wasn't clear to them that, hey, this project has these risks and how that is impacting overall project health. And one of the other kind of big pieces of feedback typically for our clients, when we meet with them weekly to share status reports, we're meeting with project managers, product managers, executive sponsor, and typically those reports are then shared with senior leadership from that client. And a lot of the feedback was, hey, I can't even share this report with my senior leadership because it didn't look great. There was no clear way of the information being presented, and there was no way for a senior leader to understand what was going on at the project level. And that was where we said we really need to redesign this in a better way.
So would you call that the aha moment or the tipping point where it was, okay, we've had either complaints or suggestions from customers where they said, this is unbearable, I need something that kind of levels ourselves up to get to that point?
Absolutely. Plus the feedback from our internal engagement managers, sharing feedback around the time that it took, and also just me being on the CC line of some of the status reports that were going out and seeing the inconsistencies across the portfolio and the representation of GlideFast as a whole. That was when we said we needed to make a change.
And so, you use ServiceNow as the project management tool or platform. We tried using some out-of-box reports, and really was more, copy paste or in PowerPoint, anything like that. Sure. What specifically made you choose VividCharts over any other option that's out there?
Right. So two parts. So one was the visualization of our data. The options that we looked at prior to engaging with VividCharts provided the data points, but again, the visualization of general budget data, how we visualize our RIDAC, how we highlighted critical areas that needed to be focused on by a client leadership team or as a project team as a whole was missing. And the ability to personalize how to showcase the data and make it easy for both the engagement manager to deliver that report and increase the efficiencies, was the kind of selling point for us. And when we engaged VividCharts in the demo that we received on just the user experience of establishing the template to the ability for exporting and what it would take for an engagement manager to have that final report from start to end was just a no-brainer.
It sounds like you liked a little bit, based upon what I'm hearing.
And I swear they're not paying me to do this. So yes.
Well, speaking of them, speaking of Mitch and Rob, let me turn over to them. Talk us through a little bit for people that don't know, about VividCharts. Why does VividCharts exist? We're talking a specific use case around project management and PowerPoint exports for project status. But what was more of that gap in the ServiceNow ecosystem that made you start this organization?
Yeah, that's a good question. Kind of a couple of questions layered into one question, but why we exist. We are essentially on a mission to eradicate manual and disjointed reporting off the face of the ServiceNow ecosystem. Ed hit on a lot of the points that really lean into the problems with manual or disjointed reporting. Like on the manual side, what Ed was talking about that he was saying is when we have all of these people left to their own devices and it's their responsibility to put these things together, the inconsistencies become pretty drastic. And for you all, that mattered because the stakeholders you were sending it to, your customers, you care a lot about that customer experience, and you had little control over that portion of the experience. Customer A might have a very different experience from customer Z. Along with that, you just don't get a lot of trust when it's going to be manual reporting. And that shows up in a couple of different ways. On one side of it is you don't know how each person is putting something together. So if I'm putting this together on a PowerPoint slide and I'm saying this is what we consider the critical path, that might be a totally different definition than the next person. So nobody really knows what is going on. And on the other side, it's the ServiceNow data that you start having issues with. Like, how do you convince your engagement managers to go update the project records, but then come back and do the reporting in there? And they got that report they have to send out. It saves them quite a bit of time to just update it in PowerPoint and then click send. And even if they thought they were going to update it, they very well could forget. So your data quality suffers quite a bit too. From a gap perspective that we saw, it's really not anything feature based. I'd say it's more persona based. The ServiceNow reporting is fantastic for the teams it's geared towards, the people in the product all day, every day, familiar with ServiceNow, need quick and easy access directly in platform to what they need. What we focus on is what we call the up and out reporting, up to leadership, out to stakeholders, in this case, customers or those external stakeholders. And that is quite a different reporting experience than what you would expect from any platform, let alone ServiceNow. So that's really what we're focusing on, the up and out reporting, which comes with, as Ed can attest to, a whole different set of requirements when you're comparing that to a service desk team or a case manager.
So when you looked at GlideFast, when we approached you to use this as our project management piece, right, to enhance our capabilities and level ourselves up, what stood out as a great fit for AOR or automated operational reporting? Based on the conversation that you had with Ed and everyone else at GlideFast, why was your product a good fit for what we were doing?
Yeah, I mean, I remember sitting down with Ed at Knowledge a couple of years ago and just talking through the workflow that he just described. And if you just think about each part of that workflow, you've got how the report's actually created. It's manual and disjointed, like Mitch mentioned. That's our mission. We want to streamline those out without sacrificing on what Ed was hitting on, getting the data points we want actually provided on the report, visualized in the right way. But then finally, what Mitch just mentioned, the up and out reporting, who's it ultimately going to? We're streamlining the process for our engagement managers and providing a report that we're proud of for our customers so that they can share it internally with their executives. So having the data right, having the design right, and having the branding and the aesthetics of the report aligned, all of that checks the boxes for what we look for in a good use case. And then lastly, you had a leader in Ed who wanted to take this on. He wanted to improve this process. So having a leader with a vision for the change, and that takes into like how we actually, put this together and rolled it out. All those things are boxes that we look to check as we're looking at a workflow with a customer.
Yeah. So what I heard was Ed loves VividCharts. VividChart loves Ed. So you're doing something behind the scenes with money handoff. That's great. I'm going to go back to Ed for some questions about the project itself. What was it like going through the pilot and the rollout with the VividCharts team?
It was interesting to be in the reverse implementation. My day-to-day is being on the front lines of implementation. So being in the reverse seat of Rob and his team helping us deliver something was actually refreshing. But it was very easy, and the support that we received from start even to this day. I mean, we've been on VividCharts for over 2 years now, and the continued support that we get, but from initial requirements, identification of, how we wanted the MVP to look like, and getting to the look and feel to the actual rollout and the testing. And there are aspects of our workflow that even were specific to GlideFast that weren't standard in the ServiceNow platform that we were able to work very closely with Rob and his team on to make it work essentially and deliver the experience that we have the vision for essentially at the end of the day. I think from start to end, it was about 4 weeks, give or take, from like day one, kickoff to rolling out the pilot and getting the feedback from our engagement managers. We pulled some customers along the way, and it was night and day. They were like, this is what I'm looking for. Like, this is something I can take to my senior leadership and demonstrate. We've engaged GlideFast to implement this product, and here is a deliverable or an output of what's going on at the project level. And it represents not only GlideFast, but VividCharts and everyone who's engaged at that level.
So after that month, you went from kickoff to pilot and go live. How quick did you start seeing the results? So you had feedback from your alpha and beta testers with your customers, but when you roll it out more broadly, what was some of the feedback you received, or how long did it take people to actually notice that we've changed the way we were doing things?
I mean, it was instant. It just from a visualization perspective and the look and feel, it was instant. The cost savings, just from a resource perspective and timing. My favorite aspect of a new EM joining our team today, coming from another partner or coming from another kind of project management related role and working with VividCharts, the first thing they say to me is, this is amazing. I'm saving so much time now that I can just ensure that the critical data is there, and I click a few buttons and I've got an exportable document ready to go to facilitate the conversation I need with the client. And sometimes you need that gut chat of like, all right, the cost savings are there, I'm hearing the efficiencies, but for someone to come in externally, join our organization, and one of the first pieces of feedback I typically get is, this is amazing. Like, this is great on how this happens.
Yeah, no, that's good insight on how it went from your side, but there's always two sides to every story. So looking at the VividCharts side, can you guys walk me through the approach that you took to roll this out for GlideFast and some of the steps that you had to take to make us successful at the end of the day, right? Because even though we had that 4 weeks, it could have been 6 or 8. It could have went sideways. So how did you keep all the train on the track at the end of the day?
Yeah, I think when we look at any reporting workflow, we look to get alignment on 3 things, and we call them the 3Ds. So the data itself that we need, presented in the report, the design, which is for sure the aesthetic, showing the GlideFast brand that we all know and love, but also the charts that you're choosing and how the data is actually visualized. That bleeds from the data into the design of the report as well. So getting alignment there, and then the last piece of the workflow, how it's actually delivered, served up to engagement managers who are then going to deliver it to customers. So having alignment with Ed on the current state, how they were doing things today, but also the future state, how they wanted it to work. And like you mentioned earlier, knowing we wanted to get a draft set up initially, but then get some feedback from our engagement managers, a few select customers, so that we can iterate. One of the nice things about VividCharts, the product, is once you have something, you can iterate very rapidly. So all of that is just important to have alignment on, and just being aligned with that on the timeline that we wanted to actually launch with. And knowing we weren't going to, launch the report and then never touch it again. Through that process, we also wanted to not just get them stood up quickly, but also get them familiar with how to use VividCharts so that going forward, they could make enhancements on their own, because they're going to get feedback along the way. They're going to mature in the way that they're using ServiceNow, maybe add new data points. So all those factors come into play when we're planning out the rollout.
Rob, you make a really great point around the sustainability of the tool. My background, I'm not a developer. I'm a little dangerous, but the ability to iterate and not have to go through a very formal SDLC process, update stats and change controls obviously are always going to be there, but the ability to make those edits pretty quickly. And after we went live, the enhancement list was, significant, but it wasn't daunting because we knew that either myself or delegates on my team who went through the training and had a very good understanding of the experience of making refinements didn't require a full kind of technical skill set and a number of other processes to make those updates in a live production instance was even an additional benefit that we didn't account for when we first engaged with you.
Yeah, and Ed, I was going to ask about specifically scalability on the training side, but it sounds like you answered the question on the update side. So no, you're great. So the actual reports themselves, you might need to make tweaks and changes to it, but it sounds like it's not overly difficult to use the actual application. You don't have to engage for additional professional services outside of that. Obviously, to get stood up, and if you need something custom, that's available. But it sounds like it's easy to use, and it's not too much of a added technical debt at the end of the day.
Exactly. And especially for GlideFast, our IT team already kind of constrained with capacity. So knowing that we didn't have to, work through our IT team and formal development staff to make maybe a few updates as we refined it, honestly was super refreshing. And then along the way, what I loved working with Rob and his team, specifically Ksania, she provided us a number of examples as we started building out the solution, but even post go live, as we continued to meet with VividCharts, learnings that they identified through other clients and partners that they work with, sharing those with us and growing the needs was just a continued relationship that's been very great.
I want to ask one more question to you, Ed, and then I want to get back to Rob and Mitch. When we're talking about efficiency and time savings, did you quantify how much time this saved for what people were doing in the past? How much time it took per status report to copy, paste, get everything set up? Inconsistencies aside, right, from not having a standard. What did that look like for the number of, let me ask, how many project status reports are we sending every single week or month? And then what does that equate to for an actual person needing on staff?
On an annual basis, we're sending over 6,000 status reports. And since we've gone live, we've actually onboarded an additional set of users, or I'm not going to say users, but clients in a different portfolio that has just increased the count of status reports as well. Different variations, of course, but we're looking at annually at least 10,000 reports that will go out to various clients on a number of cadences from weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, etc. And the ability to send those reports and generate the content within those within a couple of clicks and savings there is just incredible.
Mitch and Rob, is that normally the reaction that you get as far as mostly it's time savings and efficiency, or what other common use cases are you seeing where after people have implemented VividCharts in their environment, they come back to you and they say, we came to you to solve X, but actually we were able to solve Z, Y, A, B, C, and so on?
I'd say it is common. And, when we work with the customer and through their evaluation and ultimately their implementation, we want to be aligned with what did you make the case to get the product based off of? And the time savings is usually the backbone of that. So we're laser focused on that. And that is definitely common across customers, even for different use cases of the product. But I'd say we also hear things like what Ed shared there, where we had an unexpected benefit on the back end of that maybe wasn't core to the business case. And that could be, like Ed said, we're able to iterate much quicker with a much less technical set of resources. That could be, hey, we started putting these reports in front of leadership like we planned, but that snowballed into other reporting requests that we didn't initially plan for, but now we're able to automate that. Things like when we're presenting directly out of ServiceNow using the product, it's helped us maintain a better data quality standard internally because that's the lens leadership is looking through. So yeah, I would say there's always a backbone in what we actually built the case on with the customer, and then some unexpected benefits that kind of snowball from the rollout.
So back to you, Ed. Beyond time savings, efficiency, professionalism, did this partnership, relationship, purchase of VividCharts lead to any other measurable business impact?
Absolutely. We have gained a number of customers just by the showcase of our reports through existing implementations. And I would say on a quarterly basis, we typically get just requests for additional information on, hey, like, how did you do this? Like, who can we reach out to? And that is something that we continue to pursue with clients and engage Mitch and Rob along the way.
No, that's great. I mean, just the fact that they see the professionalism and then they go, I want that too. And with GlideFast being not only an implementer for VividCharts, but also a reseller, it helps us. It helps VividCharts. I think, it helps our customers at the end of the day. So I think that's an additional business impact that isn't typically recognized, right? So that's great that you point that out. And again, last question to you, Ed. How has this changed the client satisfaction and any confidence that they have in GlideFast?
Yeah, and that's, for us, that's measurable with our customer satisfaction surveys. I will say I review all the surveys that we receive, and typically there is a comment in there around, love the status reporting, or the visibility and transparency that we're receiving as part of the overall status of a project, and the experience for that particular client to help facilitate those conversations. And again, the reporting of all that all kind of ties together, increasing that satisfaction level, and also just delivering our overall quality as an implementator.
Mitch and Rob, looking at the bigger picture, where is reporting automation headed from your perspective?
It's a good question. I like to think about it, especially in the era of AI. What we've done at VividCharts is, okay, you've got the slide deck, in Ed's case, the status report. You had that before VividCharts as well. Maybe not standardized, it was maybe different.
Right.
What we've done is essentially automated everything leading up to that thing being created. So that is easy now. That's automatic. You've got that. What is really interesting with the new capabilities, the new technology, it's changing every week, every month, is where can we go with that deck? Like, what are the things we could do once we have that? Because when you deliver that to your EM today, there's probably still some work they have to do. Like, oh, why is that way? What's this? Let me put a summary together to include in the email. I should probably go dig into that. So I think there's this whole story to be told after you've delivered the first chapter of the story, which is the slide deck. So that's the direction we're heading. We feel like we've got the automation to the slide decks and the reports and the presentations, like a really well-oiled machine now. So we're looking for the next thing. Any
enhancements you're looking at for your product along AI or integrate with Now Assist, automatic trend lines, anything? I'm giving you free ideas here, Mitch. You got anything?
Oh yeah, you'll have to join the webinars. They're coming up.
All right. Well, thanks, Mitch and Rob and Ed and everyone for joining our latest GlideChat. Appreciate it. And everyone, have a great day. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks,
everyone. Take care. Thank
you. Do you have a topic in mind that you'd like to discuss? Reach out to us at glidefast.com and subscribe to our podcast for new episodes. Thanks for listening.